Hey, it's the Nerdy Sports Fan. So, we're continuing our series of regrading the NFL draft from 2017. Now, this is because conventional wisdom is that, well, you can't really gauge a draft until a few years later. You don't know what these guys are going to do in the league. You don't know how they're going to react to the up level of competition. You don't know how they're going to react to having money. You don't know how they're going to react to being the manager of their own time. And because all of these factors end up ruining the careers of what we think are going to be amazing football players coming out of college every year. So let's dive into these Seattle Seahawks, what they did this year. So the Seahawks traded down twice to get out of the first round entirely, which was a bit odd. But at the time, the team was relatively stacked. So I don't know. It kind of made sense. They wanted a lot of depth, a lot of players to come on the team because they had the high end talent kind of covered, but they were in that weird zone. So there was a couple of years where they were, in Super Bowls back to back, and something was going on with the locker room where Pete Carroll wanted to defend Russell Wilson. So he started purging the veterans that helped assist in win a Super Bowl and bring them to another one to keep Russell Wilson as the primary voice in that locker room. And there might be a little bad blood. I mean, you'd have to ask Richard Sherman what was going on exactly, but a lot of the veterans got pushed out. Earl Thomas, who's now playing for Baltimore, is another example. Just a lot of the powerful voiced, strong veterans that were not Russell Wilson got forcibly removed from this team. So they just needed a whole bunch of players added in order to make sure to continue building the culture for Pete Carroll. And that's what they did. They traded down a few times. They got a bunch of picks in the second, third, and fourth rounds. And I'm sorry, just second and third, really. And that's really how you want to build. In a lot of cases, Bill Belichick does that really well. But it didn't really seem to work out exactly as planned. So they start the second round with the third overall pick with Malik McDowell. And the guy just never developed into what he was supposed to be. Most people thought the Michigan State product was going to be a very solid player coming in the league, and he's just no longer in the league right now. He never got it. Not much else you can say there. So Ethan Pokic was the center out of LSU that they picked up also in the second round, pick number 26. He's still around, but he's not really worth a damn thing. He's second or third string offensive lineman, and as a middle offensive lineman, an interior offensive lineman. If you can't break the starting lineup, you got to be pretty bad. All right? There's not much else to say there. Offensive line play right now is terrible compared to what it's been in years past. So interior offensive line is easier than tackle play. And if you can't crack the starting lineup as an interior offensive lineman, you got to be pretty damn bad. Anyways, getting into round 3, pick number 26, Shaquille Griffin. So this is the first impact player that they select in this draft. Shaquille Griffin is a fantastic defensive back. He's perfect for this system. And they needed a replacement for Richard Sherman. They needed to replace the entire Legion of Boom, actually. So Griffin fits right in. He's exactly what they needed at the time they needed him. And schematically, he fits so very well in what Pete Carroll likes to do. Mostly that... it's almost a cover 2, but it's not really. So Seattle and San Francisco do the same thing, where you're planted on that side of the field. You're not going to follow the receiver. There's not a heck of a lot of man coverage. It's mostly zone, and you're taking out a side of the field. Griffin works extremely well with that. His brother, the linebacker, later would be selected. I want to say the next year. Anyways, pick 31 in round 3. They go with Delano Hill, safety out of Michigan, is no longer in the league. He just didn't make it. on a team that needed to rebuild their defensive secondary. Couldn't even hang on as a backup. All right, Nasir Jones, pick number 38 in round 3. And you asked 38? Weird? Yeah, that's because round 3 is the first round that you start getting compensatory picks. So every year, teams, when they lose starters via free agency, are awarded draft picks to compensate for that. It's part of the deal that allowed free agency to happen in the collective bargaining agreement in the first place. So, yeah, third round is where you start to see those. So you start to see more than 32 picks that round. All right. And pick 42 in round 3 was Amora Darbo? Doesn't matter. Not in the league anymore. I'm sorry. No, he is. Wide receiver out of Michigan, is playing still, but he's playing for Pittsburgh. So, and he's a whatever player for them. So, doesn't matter. Nasir Jones, by the way, is still on the team, but not really that great. Rotational depth at best. So, Tedrick Thompson is the fourth round draft pick. Pick number 4, Tedrick is a solid safety. Not spectacular, but solid. So, the previous safety, round 3, didn't make it. The round 4 safety, solid. Okay, so this is why you want to accumulate up a lot of picks. It doesn't matter what round you're in. First, second, third, fourth. There's an element of gambling in these guys because of all of the factors that they need to check off in their professional career. You can't possibly know how well they're going to at this point in their lives. You're guessing, really, about how they're going to handle the fame and the money, how good their work ethic is going to remain when they're not being hounded by coaching staff constantly. So, yeah, accumulating a hell of a lot of picks is a strategy that works in a lot of cases, and we're going to see why in a minute here. So, at this point, Shaquille Griffin and Tedrick Thompson are the only picks really worth a damn in this draft, and they accumulated a lot of second and third round selections. So, you get into round 6 now. Third pick in round 6, Michael Tyson, safety out of Cincinnati, didn't end up making the team, didn't stay on the team. He's not in the league anymore. And the other 6th round pick, Justin Senior, offensive tackle out of Mississippi State. Same thing, not around anymore. But then you get into the 7th round. And 7th rounders are usually throwaway picks. Okay? These are guys that have something wrong. All right? Either they definitely did not play at a solid program, which means their competition level is absolute trash, or they've got something weird going on in their past, like their grades were absolutely atrocious, so they couldn't get to a real school, so they ended up going to like a junior college or something like that. There's something that made it so they weren't going to be at a premier program and didn't put up good statistics. A lot of times there's injuries for these guys in their college career. And the reason 7th round players make it on a team is usually somebody in the front office or somebody in the coaching staff has watched film on that dude and is just pounding the table for him. Like, give this dude a chance. And whoever was pounding the table for these dudes needs a raise. Because pick number 8 in round 7, David Moore, out of East Central. So a wide receiver in round 7 making the team is a big deal. But one that's a solid contributor to the team. He's not spectacular. Okay, this isn't a number 1 or number 2 receiver. He's a number 3 or number 4 receiver. Okay? And he contributes on special teams. But that's the best you can hope for in the 7th round. Okay? And it's not like he's a chump. Okay? He's actually a pretty solid player. They just happen to have better receivers than him. So, David Moore is a solid pick. And then number 31, pick number 31 in round 7, they end up selecting Chris Carson. Chris Carson is their starting running back. He's the reason that Rashad Penny hasn't done a damn thing, and Penny was a first-round draft pick the next year. So Chris Carson is one of the guys I point to as fantasy football gold. All right? Everybody forgets about the dude. But he gets the bulk of the carries and is the linchpin of the most solid running game in all of football. So, yeah, Chris Carson in the 7th round, pick number 31. So this was an absolutely atrocious draft at the beginning. But when you look at it a few years later, you have the 2017 draft year has created some good depth, solid contributors in Tedrick Thompson and David Moore, a handful of depth players that are still on the team that are going to amplify the message of the head coach by just being in the room for that long. And some very good players in Shaquille Griffin and Chris Carson. So, is it a perfect draft? Absolutely not. But this is a B-. You know, this is a solid year. You got a couple of solid starters. You got contributors to your team that are worth keeping in Moore and Thompson. And you've got depth in a number of positions, both offensive and defensive line. So, yeah, you can't really ask for too much more in your average year out of the draft. If this is the baseline and this is what you can continue to do in the draft, your team is going to be successful for a very long time. You just need to hit a couple of times. And to get one of those hits with your last pick in the 7th round is pretty nuts. So obviously they're doing good things in the front office there in order to find quality players so deep in the draft. So let me know what you guys think. Okay? Like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. As always, hit up the remaining videos that I have. I'm about halfway through the league on this series right now. And keep it tuned here next week as we are starting our fantasy football coverage and breakdowns. Thanks for watching.